In this lesson, we're going to add some more dress-ups. And remember, in the writing process, the first thing you're going to do is do your outlining and your research. And then you're going to write your draft. After you have your draft, you're going to clean it up. And when I say clean it up, I'm talking about the mechanics of it, the punctuation, the spelling, the capitalization, the usage. And then after you clean it up, we're going to dress it up, and we're working on the dress up portions. We've already learned how to do the keyword outline, and that's when you're doing your research. And depending on how much research you have, depends on how much outlining and preparation for writing that you're going to do. And then you write your draft. This is where you write and get your thoughts down. And you think about the organization, but we are going to work on that a little later also. And then after you get your draft down, you clean it up, and now we're dressing it up. We talked about the dress-ups who, which, ly, and strong verbs last lesson. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things about the who, which that occurred in some of the writing. It's very easy to take a who, which clause and end up creating a fragment. Let me start here. Let's say dogs are cute. Okay, that's my basic sentence. I'm going to dress it up. Dogs who are cute, so I turned that into a who which clause, but it doesn't have a verb because I use the verb in the clause. And that happens a lot when people are using their dress-ups. They end up creating fragments. And so I want you to watch for this. You should be able to completely take out your who, which clause, and the sentence still makes sense. So if we had this dogs who are cute, are also easily adopted. And so you can see that I could take this out, who are cute. Dogs are also easily adopted. The who are cute adds information to the sentence. But the sentence still makes sense without the who, which clause. So your who, which clause is giving you additional information about a noun. Remember, these are noun clauses. There's a couple of things about the punctuation that you need to be aware of. If the information that you're putting in with your who, which clause is not that important, you put commas around it. If the information that you're putting in with the who, which clause is pretty essential to the reader understanding the sentence, you do not put commas around it. And that is at the writer's discretion. So you have to decide how important is that who, which clause. Okay, so be careful when you're making your who, which clauses that you do not accidentally create a fragment. You should be able to mark it through and still have your noun and your verb. Well, that's actually our verb, and that's our helping verb. So you should still have a noun and a verb without your who, which clause. And that's whether you have a who, which that's essential or non-essential to the sentence. The other things I just want to review, remember that a semicolon is the same thing as a period. You choose a semicolon when your two sentences are closely related. If you're feeling like you want to put a comma, and that would create a comma splice because you have a subject, noun, and verb on both sides of that comma, use a semicolon. If they're closely related, a semicolon's a better choice. So those are the two things that I'm still seeing in your writing a little bit. And we're going to work on, I will mark these when I see them so that you can be aware of them and work to eliminate them. And so we're going to today look at our quality adjectives, our www.asia, and our because. Let me get me a new file here. I mean a new blank piece of paper, so we can talk about our www.asias. Okay. And when I call it a www.asia, that makes it easy to remember what our words are, because we have when, while, where, as, since, if, and although. And all of these, and many, many, many more, begin a subordinate clause. And so we're going to be adding subordinate clauses to our writing now. Sometimes you might have heard them called adverbial clauses, because these are our adverb words: when, while, where, as, since, if, although. Those all start adverbial clauses. They're also called subordinate clauses. And we're going to call it www.asia, and not going to worry too much about whether it's a subordinate or an adverbial clause. We're just going to call it www.asia. A couple of things you need to know about your www.asia clauses is if you begin your sentence with a www.asia, you have to put a comma and then the rest of your sentence. If you begin your sentence and you put your www.asia after your main sentence, you do not put a comma. So no comma if your subject noun verb begins your sentence. Let's do a couple of examples here. I don't have a lot of room, although the dog was cute, comma. See, here we have a www.asia. He was not adopted. That's a sad sentence. Period. So here I have my subject noun or my subject pronoun, and I have my linking verb. So I have my main sentence after my www.asia, and then I have a comma. If I had turned it around and I had put he was not adopted, although I'm going to put ... he was cute, I do not put a comma if my subordinate clause follows my main clause. And this is a very important comma to learn. So if you start with the subordinate clause at www.asia, you need a comma before your independent clause or main clause. So we're basically putting together some building blocks here. If you think of your www.asia as one building block, then that comma is another building block, and then your main sentence. And so this dress up, when, while, where, since, as, if, or although, and I should have had a comma there, that's the one we're going to add to our Shark essays. Quality adjective, that's the same as a strong verb. You're going to look through your adjectives and you're going to pick a better adjective. You're all in high school. You can come up with some great adjectives. And let's look at an essay here, and we will go ahead and make some of these changes. And I'm going to have you submit your essays as a PDF, because that way it comes through the best for me to see your changes. So we're not going to be able to track changes. What I want you to do is just underline your dress ups, and then I will be able to tell that you know what you're doing. In some of the last essays, some people made some changes, and I wasn't sure. They weren't a who which, they weren't an ly, and they weren't a strong verb. So I wasn't sure what change they were making. So only underline the things that actually are listed as our dress ups. So quality adjectives. And we can do this the same as we as we did the strong verbs, we can look for a good adjective and then look for the synonym if we're using word. If you're not using words, you can always look at the thesaurus. Let's go ahead and read through till we find a good adjective. 1/4 of sharks and rays, so we'll have to put an S here, rays face extinction. And remember, we're still working with our draft, so if we find some mistakes in the essay, that's fine. The more we read it, the more we're going to catch. So we make our draft, we clean it up, and we're dressing it up. Sharks have the brunt of the problem. They are being overfished in many parts of the world. Sharks are also involved in an this is a great quality adjective already. Practice, which is called finning, where the fin of the shark is cut off and the body is discarded back into the ocean. The fin is considered a delicacy in some parts of the world and is misused for soups. We need to be protecting sharks and their habitat. People in New York don't realize the ecological splendor. Again, this is a great quality adjective here, ecological splendor. This essay already has some great adjectives in it. But let's see if we can find an adjective that we can improve on. In particular, the New York seascape. It is home to a variety of animals, including whales, turtles, etc. The seascape is a hot spot for 40 species. It is also a home for several types of sharks. And since this is a list, we really need to put a colon here. The blue shark, the white shark, mako sharks, and thresher. The reason people do not protect the habitats of the animals is because it is not easily seen. We need to take action to protect the habitats of wildlife who are threatened. One of the great habitats is an underwater canyon, which is called the Hudson Canyon. In many ways, it is the jewel of the seascape. It is a large chasm that extends to the continental shelf. People and submarines marvel at the many species the canyon shelters. It is home to many animals ranging from coral to sponges to anemones. People are not quick to realize the importance of the underwater canyon. The Hudson Canyon is the largest underwater canyon in the world. The Hudson Canyon has an uncertain future. It is home to many recreational fishermen and commercial fisheries. We need vigilant people who will defend the habitats and the species that live there. Well, I didn't find any adjectives that I want to change, so we're going to add an adjective, and that might happen to you when you're reading through yours. You might think, I don't have any adjectives that I want to change, so we'll add an adjective. And adjectives always go before nouns. So basically, you find yourself a noun and add yourself a quality adjectives. Sharks have the brunt of the problem. Okay, problem's a noun. And we could change it to this. Sharks have the brunt of this. Let's think of a word that means a difficult problem. Sharks have the brunt of this, and if I can't think of a word, you can always type in a word, difficult, and then use our synonym feature. And we could pick complicated problem. And that's a better quality adjective, and then I want you to underline it. And you can pick any of the underlines. I've done the double underline, but just something that shows me that you have picked this. I'm also going to have you just put the type of dress up after it so that I know that you know that that is an adjective. And right here, which is called the Hudson Canyon, after it, let's just put a who which. People in submarines marvel. Here we have a strong verb. Who will defend the habitats and the species that live there? We have a who which. Fortunately, we have an ly. And yes, I can see that that is an LY, but what I want to know is that you know that you're doing this intentionally, because a lot of these dress ups you guys are probably already doing in your writing, but I want to see the changes where you're dressing it up and making it better. Now let's work on our when, while, where, since, as, if, or although. So we're going to put in a www.asia clause. And they're adverbial clauses, so they're going to go with our verbs mostly. We need to be protecting sharks in their habitats. And we could just start with while we have time, comma. We need to be protecting sharks in their habitats. So here I put in a www.asia. And you'll notice that my www.asia was at the beginning, so I put a comma. Now let's put a www.asia after a main clause. The seascape is a hotspot for 40 species. It is also home for several types of sharks. The reason people do not protect the habitats of the animals is because it is not easily seen. We need to take action to protect the habitats of wildlife who are threatened. And here's another who, which. We need to take action to protect the habitats of wildlife who are threatened, since they cannot protect themselves. That's not the greatest sentence, but I wanted to show you that I'm not going to put a comma. I'm going to have to get rid of this period, though. We need to take action to protect the habitats of wildlife who are threatened since they cannot protect themselves. So I put in, since they cannot protect themselves. I need to underline it and put a www.asia after it. So I've put in two www.asias. One, I began the sentence and I needed a comma. One was after the main sentence and I did not put a comma. So we have our main sentence here. We need to take action to protect the habitats of wildlife. And then we dressed it up, who are threatened. And then we put a www.asia. So we dressed it up twice in one sentence, and that's fine. As long as you know what you're doing, you're building these pieces together. And in the curriculum, they talked to, the man who wrote the curriculum talked about how he taught a graduate student who was writing their thesis to use these dress-ups. And the thesis committee just wasn't that thrilled with her writing. And so they asked her to go back and revise it. And all she did was go through and utilize these techniques. And then they said, I don't know what you've done, but the writing is much improved. All of these little things improve your writing, and it's dressing it up. So we make our draft, we clean it up, and we dress it up. And for your homework, you're going to be taking your shark essay, same essay, and you are going to dress it up with quality adjectives and the www.asias. You're going to underline your dress-ups and mark in parentheses after it what it is. And then you'll need to save as and save it as a PDF. And then submit that PDF through me through Juno. And so I'm going to set the Juno doc to accept any file, so you can send me in a PDF, or you can send it to me in Word also. If it's in Word, I'll be able to correct it. In a PDF, I'll just have to write you back a note in the comment section of your Juno. So far everyone's doing great with these dress-ups and also with the hanging indents. And when you save it as a PDF, I can also see that your hanging indent is working. the Juno Docs wasn't maintaining the hanging indent. So I hope everyone understands how to make the hanging indent even though it didn't come through. But I'll check that in later papers. So sharks, dress it up. We're in the dress up stage. Add those quality adjectives and the www.asia. I'm going to be looking that you know how to use that comma with the www.asia. And that is your homework. That's the end of the lesson.